This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, all right. Well, my name is Bill Cook, tutor for Seeds, and I'm going to get started here. Today's lesson is going to be on mode, mean, and median. And this will be recorded, so you can always look back on this if you need to, if you need a refresher. First of all, why should we even care about mode, median, and mean, other than the fact that it's going to be on the test? So one of the things about mode, median, and mean is these are all really good ways to get a quick summary about a bunch of data. So a bunch of numbers that are grouped together, and it's a really good way to kind of summarize them, to get them in place. So we'll talk a little bit about the process of learning this, and a lot of times one of the most difficult things for students really is just the vocabulary, just keeping straight which one is which. What's mode, what does it mean, what is mean, and what is median. So I'm going to try to give you a few things to help you remember what those words are. So we'll look at those, and really you'll find that the math it involves mainly adding and dividing. That's about it. Once you learn the tricks for and the steps that you follow for each of these, really that's about it as far as the math goes. So we'll walk through some problems, but when I start here, I want to give you some memory tools, just so that you remember what these three things are when they come up on the test. So we're going to go over those, and hopefully you can add those as tools to your toolbox. So first, let me go, and I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, and let me start this here. Okay, and as we look at this, let me help you remember a couple of these things. So first of all, without even knowing what these are and how to calculate them or anything else, I want to start by just memorizing some words. So the first thing that I want you to associate with mode is the word most. And you can do that because both words start with MO, and they both have 4 letters, and they both sound about the same. So mode and most. So remember those. And then mean. So when you think about mean and nasty. and why I say mean and nasty is it's meaner and it's nastier because you have to do a little bit more calculating when you figure out the mean. But really it's not that mean or nasty. We'll walk through a few of these and you'll see that it's not so bad. But that's something that might help you remember what mean is, just because there's more calculating that you have to do with the mean. Now we'll look at median. So when you think of median, I want you to think of the median in the interstate, the median in the highway. And think about that middle strip there. Think about it going between the middle of 2 roads. So it's the median. And also median and middle, they kind of sound similar. So think about that. When you think of median, remember middle. Okay, so we're going to cover all 3 of those today. We're going to talk about what they are, how you calculate them, and some other different ways to think about what mode, mean, and median are, and the effects of changing some of the data in them, some of the values. And then, of course, I'll keep reminding you some of these tools so that you can tell them apart. And then we'll check at the end just to make sure, and I'll kind of recap what we've learned. So just one more time, actually one of a few more times. There's mode, remember most. Mean, remember mean and nasty. And median, remember middle. Okay. So let's look first at mode. And this is the number that shows up the most. Okay, so that's why we called it that. That's why we remember that tool, because it shows up the most. If you have a list of numbers that are in your list, that'll be a value that shows up the most. Now there may be no mode for a list of numbers. If they all appear, if each value appears just once, say, and they all appear just once, then there's no mode. There's none of them that wins out over the rest of them for how many times it shows up. But there also might be more than one mode. So you might have some value in a set of numbers that shows up 3 times, and then you'll have another value, a different value that shows up 3 times. Both of those are the mode. Now, probably what you'll find is that on a test or in problems that you're working on, usually there's just one mode. But wanted to let you know this just in case, just to make sure. So let's look at, let's see, we'll get over here. Okay, so how you find the mode. First of all, you want to sort all of your numbers out, all of the values that you have in a list of numbers, and you want to put them in order. You don't have to put them in order, but that's just the easiest way to sort them out. And we'll find that there's another method where putting them in order helps too. So just get in the habit of putting them in order if you're figuring out the mode. And then you look at that, those groups of numbers, and you see what appears most often. So that word most again for mode. Okay, so let's look at an actual example. So let's say we have a customer satisfaction survey. And it's one of those surveys where you say that you put a 0 if you really don't like it at all, a 5 if it's so good that you can't live without it, and something in between if your opinion is a little different. So let's say that we have this set of numbers that we got back from the survey. So we have all of these numbers here. So let's figure out what the mode is of that. Now you may be able to see from looking at it what it would be, but let's go ahead and we'll follow the steps to figure it out. And I should ask too, do you have any questions at this point?
No.
Okay. So we'll keep moving on here. Okay. So with this example, I didn't put the words for the example. I just put the numbers that we got up here. So first of all, we want to put all of the numbers in order, and we have to include them all. We don't want to forget any of them. So we'll go ahead and do that. So you notice that there's a couple of zeros, and a good way to do it is write them down and then cross them out as you go through them. So we've got zeros, looks like we have 1, 1 here. We got it, we'll put it, we'll cross it out. Couple of 2s, 1, 3. There were 3 4s and 1 5 that came back on this survey. Okay, so we look at all of those. And our next step is we want to find the number in this list, in this set of groupings, that appears the most. So as you can see, it looks like 4 is the winner on this one because it's got 3 of them together, 3 of them. The next closest are 0 and 2 that have 2 of each. So 4 is the mode. It has the most values. The number 4 appears the most in this list. Okay, so that's mode. Okay, now let's look at mean. And we'll need to look at mean before we look at median, because there's sometimes that we need to use the mean when we're finding the median. Okay, so let's look at mean. So the mean, oftentimes, in fact, most of the time really, you'll hear the mean being talked about as the average. Okay, so the average is usually the word that you use for that. But mean is the one that you'll see on the test and in the homework assignments. Okay, and means can be a really good kind of general estimate of typical values. So you might find that you talk about the mean or the average, like in miles per gallon, or the price of milk, or the number of home runs on average that Frankie Lindor hits per season, or maybe the average weight of German Shepherd dogs or something. Okay. So it's just kind of a typical value. And this is the one that involves some calculations. So how you find the mean is, first of all, you count how many numbers that you have. And then after you count all of them, the number of the count of numbers in the list of numbers that you're trying to find the mean for, then you add them together. So you find the sum of all of the numbers. So now you've counted them and you've added them all up. After you do that, then here's where you do the division. You divide the total that you found in this step 2, you divide that by the count that you figured out in step 1. So it's probably easier to see it in an example. So we'll look at that and how you find an average or a mean. So let's say that there's 5th grade classes in a school district. Say there's 5 5th grade classes, and they have the following numbers of children in them. They have 24 and 28, 21, 32, and 30. So we want to find what the mean is of all these 5th grade classes. And you might want to do that if you were trying to maybe compare yourself to another school district, or if you wanted to kind of roughly figure out how many supplies you needed to buy for your classrooms, things like that. So let's look at how you would do that. So up here are the numbers of students that were given in the problem there. So the first step is you count how many numbers there are in this list, and you can see that there's 5 numbers. Then you want to find the sum of all of those numbers. So you want to add them all up. So let's go ahead and, just because it's good practice, let me put myself back on here. And let me get, oops. Got to get my camera, get myself back on here. Okay, there we are. Okay, so now we have those 5 numbers. So just for practice, we'll go ahead and add these 5 numbers up. Okay, so we'll start from our ones here. So we've got 8 and 4 are 12, 1 is 13, 2 more is 15. We'll put a 5 down here. Carry our 1. And we've got 1 plus 2 is 3, plus another 2 is 5, plus another 2 is 7, 7 plus 3 is 10, and 10 plus 3 is 13. Okay, so for this problem, we have 135 when we add them all up. Okay. So then, let's see. So here we are. So we can see that we've added them up. We've gotten them to 135. Now our next step is to do that division. Here, let me go back into this. Next step is to do that division. So we want to divide that 135 by 5. So it'd be 135 divided by 5, or another way to say that is 5 into 135. So let's look at that. We'll go ahead and do that one too by hand, just because that's good practice. Put so back on here. Okay, so now we've got 5 into 135, or 135 divided by 5. And sometimes a good way to do division is to either do it on graph paper, so you keep things lined up, or to put a piece of paper next to it. Yeah, let me do that here. Okay, so if we look at 5, does 5 go into 1? No, it doesn't go into 1. Does 5 go into 13? I'm trying to do this while looking at it here. Does 5 go into 13? Yes, it does. So 5 goes into 13 2 times. So we'll go ahead and put the 2 in there.
And then
Okay.
5 times 10 is 2. I mean, 5 divided, it's 10.
Yeah, that's right. I know what you meant. Okay. So we got the 2 times 5, and you're right, that's 10. Okay, so we got the 10. Subtract.
And then it's 3.
Okay,
And then you bring down a 5.
that's right. Bring down the 5.
And then 5 1 35 7 times.
7 times. Very good. Okay. So 35, and that brings us right to 27. Okay. So 27 is our mean in this case. All right. We'll go back to the screen here. Okay. All right. So as you said,
Go in your room.
so we've got a mean of 27. So on average, there are 27 students in a 5th grade class there. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So now let's talk about median. So median, oh, and you may want to mute your mic.
Okay.
There we go. All right. Thank you. So the median is the middle number. So we said just like that middle area on the highway, the median is in the middle. So that's in the middle of the list. So this is another case where you have to put the list of numbers in order. So you put them in order, and then you'll find that once you have the median, half of the numbers in your list are higher than it, and half are lower than your median. And the reason why you sometimes use a median, and I'll explain this a little bit later too, but one of the reasons why you use a median rather than a mean, why you might want to use a median rather than a mean, is if you have a few of the points in the list that are way different from the others. So that if you were to take the mean, it wouldn't be really realistic. It wouldn't be close to the other numbers. And I'll show you that. I'll show you that in just a moment. So when you're finding the median, you're going to put all of the numbers in order and make sure that you get all of them. You're going to then find the number that's in the middle. And then there's a special case that if you have 2 numbers in the middle, you just find the mean between those 2 numbers. And we'll go over both of these examples. So let's look at this example first. So here we've got a bunch of test scores, and we want to find the median of those test scores. So we have all of these numbers that we want to go through to figure out what's the median for those. So take a look here. So the first step is to put them in order. And how you probably want to do this is kind of like how we did it for mode. You write them down as you find them. Look for the lowest one and then write that one down. Look for the next lowest and write that one down. So we'll just go ahead and then cross them off as you go along. So let's do that here. So we know that 67 is a lot lower than the other one. So we'll put 67 there. Looks like maybe the next one, maybe 87 is the next one. And then 88's right next to it, 88. Then we've got 92. And then, so we're just writing them down and crossing them off as we go. 92, next one looks like 93. And we've got a 96 over there and a 100 right here. Okay, so now we've got them all in order. So we have the smallest over here, the largest over here. So our next step is to find the middle, because median means middle. So let's find the number that's in the middle. And the easiest way to do that is just to start crossing off each end and work your way to the middle. So we'll cross off the 100 and the 67. Now we'll cross off the 96 and the 87. Now we'll cross off the 93 and the 88. And there we go. There's the median. So the median is 92. So notice that when we found the mode and when we find the median, sometimes there's really almost no math involved in doing that. It's just putting lists in order and finding something about that list. For mode, we found the most things in the list. And for median, we find the middle thing in the list. Okay? All right. So let's go and we'll look at another example. Now this is an example where we're going to have a couple of numbers that are in the middle. So we'll work through that, and it's not hard. We'll just do the same. We start out the same way. So here we've got a number of people went fishing, and they caught different amounts of fish. So we want to find what the middle or median number of fish was in that list of numbers. So let's do that. So first thing, just like before, we put them all in order. So we've got 0, cross it off. 6, cross it off. And we do the same for all these other numbers. Get them in order from smallest to largest. Okay, so now we've done that. Got the smallest 0, largest 22, and they're all there. And we've crossed them all off, so we know we've got them all. Okay, now we want to find the number that's in the middle. So just like before, we'll start crossing them off from each end. So let's do that. So we take the 0 and the 22, cross them off. 14 and 6, cross them off. Okay, we can't cross the 10 and the 12 off or we wouldn't have anything left. So we've got two middle numbers. So we've got to figure out what we need to do for that. Well, we know that we need to find the mean. We need to find the mean of these two numbers, and we know how to do that now because we did that before with some other problems. So let's take a look at that. So we've got that extra step now that we need to find the mean of just those two numbers, not the whole list, but just those two numbers that are in the middle. In this case, they're 10 and 12. Okay, so just a reminder on the mean, what that is. So we want to count how many numbers there are, and in this case, there's going to be two numbers because we're only finding the mean of those two middle numbers. We're going to add them together. In this case, we're just going to add those two numbers together, and then we're going to divide what we added by the count. So we're going to divide what we added together by 2. So I'll show you that. So over here, we've got our the mean of just those two numbers that we want. So we know we have 2. when we add them together, we've got 10 plus 12, so that's going to be 22. And then we're going to divide the 22 by 2, or said another way, 2 into 22. So we're going to do this, 22 divided by 2. I just wrote it a little differently than we did before. But you can see 22 divided by 2 is 11. And the way you can check that too is division is the opposite of multiplication. So you could check and see 11 times 2 is 22. So you know that this is right. So the median number of fish that were caught was 11. In this case, the median isn't really even one of these numbers. It's in between those two. Okay, so everything okay so far? Okay, all right, so we'll go on here. And just want to check just a few other things before we wrap up the lesson here. Look at this case. So, and this is an actual number. The median home value in Akron is around $74,000. So let's say that on one particular street, there's 5 houses. And the 5 houses are worth $65,000, $65,000, $74,000, $78,000, and $79,000. So first, just looking at that list, what would be the mode of that list? What number shows up the most? So in this case, if you look at all 5 of these numbers, the mode, or the number that shows up the most, is 65,000, because see that shows up twice. Okay, so that would be the mode of that list. So looking at this list again, with all 5 of these numbers, which one would be the median? And see how they're already in order. So the median is going to be the middle one. And the middle one is 74,000. Okay, does that make sense? So we've got the mode, the one that appears the most is 65,000, because that appears twice, and the other ones appear only once. And the median is in the middle. Okay, so the mode was 65,000, because that shows up twice. It appears the most, mode and most. And the median or middle, 74,000. Okay, now let's say we change the numbers a little bit. Since it's in Akron, and LeBron's from Akron, let's say that he buys that $79,000 home and he builds a $2 million home in its place. Okay, so let's look at that and see how that is going to affect the mode, the median, and the mean. Okay, now remember we said the last time the mode was 65,000, because that appeared 2 times and the other numbers appeared only 1 time. So mode, or the most times, was seen by the $65,000. Okay, now we still have a list of 5 numbers. We scratched the other one off because he tore that house down and he built his $2 million house in its place. So we still have a list of 5 numbers. And so what would happen to the mode in that case with this list of 5? So for this list, there's still 5 numbers. This number still appears twice. The other numbers only appear once. So the mode is the same. It's still $65,000, because that shows up 2 times. The other numbers only show up 1 time. 74,000, 78,000, 2 million. Those just show up 1 time. Okay, so the mode actually stays the same. So what about the median? We still have 5 numbers. They're still in order. So the middle number for all of these is still $74,000. So the median actually stays the same. It's still $74,000. Now the mean, we didn't calculate that before. And the mean actually before was, I think it was $72,200. Okay, if we had calculated it, that's what it is. But with LeBron's new house there at $2 million, if we were to take the mean, since to take the mean, you add all of these and you divide by 5, since there's 5 numbers. Since this got a lot bigger, the mean is going to get a lot bigger too. So the mean goes way up, and it actually went from $72,200 to $456,400. So the mean went way up. So let's look at that, and this sort of shows why you might use medians when you're talking about home prices rather than mean. Because what we ended up with for the mean wasn't anywhere near what any of the other houses were worth. These ones were a lot lower, and this one was a lot higher. So it's almost meaningless, the mean here. But the median stayed the same at 74,000. And that's a little bit more in line with what most of the houses were worth. So that's probably a little bit better way of talking about housing prices. And that's often used in reports and things about different communities and their home prices. It is the median, because sometimes there are some super expensive houses that sort of don't really reflect what the community is like. Another thing often is income. When we talk about income, median is often used for that, because most people make, a certain amount, and then there's a few like CEOs or whatever that make many, many millions of dollars. So it kind of throws off the average or the mean. So we would use a median for that. Okay. All right. So just one more check here. So remember that the keyword that you want to remember for mode is most. The keyword that you want to remember for mean is mean and nasty, because there's more calculating that you have to do with that. And for median, we've got middle. Okay. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover, but I want to give you a chance to ask some questions if you like. And let me get back to where I can look at you. There we go. So are there any questions before we call it a day?
No.
Okay.
I kind of knew how to do this. Well, I won't say kind of. I know how to do this because it was very easy.
Okay. All right.
But
Good.
now I know that the definition is a little better, so I can stick those in my head. So.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Well, I'm very glad that you joined.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad that you was able to teach me.
All right. Good.
Yeah, I think you covered those very well, Bill.
Okay.
Yeah, you did. As someone who didn't know what they was doing, you covered it very well.
Okay. All right. Good.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Have a good day. Stay well.
You too.
Okay.
Bye bye.